Welcome to the Dawn Jarvis Show with Dawn Jarvis, the diverse nurse. And in this podcast, we will be talking about healthcare, self-care, diversity, careers, and well-being from a Black woman's perspective. We're really happy that you're here. So if you're ready, let's get on with the show.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Dawn Jarvis Show. I'm Dawn Jarvis and I'm the diverse nurse, and this is the podcast where I talk to and about busy leaders, professionals and business owners who are part of my diverse network. I talk to them about who they are, what they do and why they do it, and how they prioritise their own health and well-being to stay focused, positive and productive. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by the wonderful Linda Sage, and she's going to be sharing her expertise around unmasking mental health and hidden disabilities for better business. Linda is going to tell us why myths and misconceptions and mangled truths around mental health aren't helpful, explain that talking about mental health is normal, and we're going to also talk about that nobody is exempt from the effects of mental health. I'm really looking forward to this. Linda has been living and working around the world as a criminal psychologist. Linda is a lecturer, author, podcaster, speaker and broadcaster. She helps organisations cultivate and strengthen the mental health capacity of their staff to increase morale, enhance productivity, improve retention, engagement and efficiency. She helps to unmask the mental health and hidden disabilities in the workplace and break that social stigma to build better relationships and a better business. Linda, that sounds marvellous. And I'm really looking forward to this. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Hey, Dawn, thank you so much. Wow, what an introduction. I'm sitting there
I know, it was good. It was good.
No.
Yeah, I think it was an amazing woman. You are an amazing woman. There's no doubt about it. I know, Linda, you know, we're in a couple of groups together. We've spoken on stages and Clubhouse together, linked on LinkedIn. So, you know, that's the networking thing. That's how we're connected. Absolutely fascinated with her story. I know we've had a bit of a chat about it. I'm really looking forward to it. So how... You've lived all of the world, you're a criminal psychologist. How did you get to where you are and what you do?
Wow, like so many people, jigsaw pieces just fitted into place. I was the first person in my family to go to university. My father was so proud, you know, this was going to be a solicitor or a doctor, you know. And when I went down to Canterbury University, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was talking to one of the professors from there, and he said, before you do anything, go and listen to this lecture. And it was amazing. It was just like all these light bulbs going on. And I thought, this is it. This is what I want to do. So I signed up for psychology. When I got home, my dad didn't speak to me for 3 weeks.
Oh my goodness.
Because as far as he was concerned, that's not a proper degree. You do that if you can't do anything else.
Yeah.
So it took him years to actually come around, and it wasn't until I actually did my education degree for the teaching, many years later, that he actually believed that that's a proper one. So I travelled all around the world. I'd got my master's and everything else in psychology, specialised in the criminal psychology, but to him, it still wasn't a proper job yet. Mm-hmm. And in Canterbury, we were very lucky that in Kent, and you're going back a long time, you know, I'm old school. So when I started...
Nothing wrong with that, girl.
But when I started in psychology, now, I mean, people talk about psychology if it's a normal run-of-the-mill everyday occurrence. But when I started, it was like voodoo or something, you know, not quite, you know, talk about really. But I was very lucky because Kent Constabulary was always a little bit more open than a lot of the other constabularies in the UK. And so in the University of Kent, there was a lot of the officers, specialist training officers and things like that, that were doing educational degrees as well. So through them, I got invited in to work with the police and do things like this. So the profiling and the work within crime scenes and things like that really opened up from that. And then a friend I met through the university was working in a prison, and they were really short staffed, and she said, oh, come in and just do some, you know, cover days for us because we really need it. And I'm like, I'm not sure if that's quite the thing I want to do. But going in and working with perpetrators working in psychology, one of your most important areas is your boundaries. And I know in nursing, you have the same thing. You know,
Absolutely.
you've got to protect yourself to be able to protect your people around you. And actually working with the perpetrators, it was a lot easier on me than working with the victims. So it was just like, oh, well, yeah, this is the next step, really. So that's where that really came from, because it was a safeguard for me, because I specialised in sexual offenders and serial killers. So, you know what a 2-year-old or a 10-year-old is like, but you don't have to deal with the soul, the spirit, or the families of the victims. Well, not on a regular occurrence. So that to me was sort of my safety net that I've been struggling with previously. So that's how that really, again, just when you're looking for doors, they open. If you're not looking, they won't open.
So true. It's so true. It's I think when I started nursing, I never imagined that I wouldn't always be working in a hospital with patients, and with adult patients actually. And I ended up working with children, and then I also ended up working strategically. And you don't even see that when you look at those jobs. I really like what you said around boundaries, and that, when you're helping people, and I think this is around the podcast, around, so if you're in a profession that helps people in whatever way you do, you have to be really conscious about helping yourself and having those boundaries as well. And I think that's really, really important. Do you agree, Linda?
Knowing and doing are two completely different things, because anybody in key roles you speak to, you've got to have lived under a rock if you don't know about good nutrition, sleep, hydration, rest time. So, but knowing and doing are two different things. And I'm sure as a nurse, you often put off going to the loo because you just had to finish this for somebody else. But it's not just in nursing, it's in all the giving professions. We take just basic necessities away from ourselves. And with all the knowledge I had, I was caring for 2 elderly parents. I had a young daughter on the autistic spectrum, lots of other issues going on, and a full caseload of some of the most notorious criminals in the UK at the time. And I just wasn't caring for me. I was putting my energy in getting all the support for my mum and my dad, going to educational tribunal for my daughter, and just everything. I was so far back on the list that, yes, I ended up burning out. And yes, I should know better. But when you're at the time, you're so far in denial because we're the world's worst. And we say, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, I'm okay. You're not, you're barking people's head off if they dare to sort of say, well, let's see if I can help you. No. You can't show this, because it's like a shame, the guilt, the feeling like it's a weakness. And this is where mental health gets such a bad press, because if we felt better about explaining how we were feeling and being able to cut out that denial earlier, then instead of having a big problem, we could be solving a smaller problem. And I must say that men are actually worse than women. We do sometimes, sort of confide in people and have a chat, but men have this bigger boundary. But most people wait over a year to actually say, that they're not feeling good, or their emotions in turmoil. And by then, this little weed has grown into an oak tree. So being able to have this idea of it's not quite nice, it's not the right thing to say, or and even in key roles now, dealing a lot with the police and things like this, for them to take time off for stress, they can't have it on their record because it does affect their possibility of promotion. And this is crazy, because these are the people that are living under trauma every single day. For most people, we might see a trauma if it happens to us or somebody around us. So we might see one. But these frontline people, they see this one, then they go on and their next call could be another one. Then it's a child, then it's something else. So they're constantly seeing, and you as a nurse, especially, when you're working in the ICUs and the emergency departments and things like this, you are constantly dealing with trauma. And if you're not dealing with it yourself and giving yourself time, then it just adds up. And at the end of the day, it will take its toll. And
So true what you're saying, and it's really important the work that you're doing with organisations around this. Really good examples around the police and the nursing profession, the medical profession, and particularly, you know, the whole world's been through a trauma, hasn't it, with COVID-19 and the pandemic and the impact that has had. I used to be an intensive care nurse, and you know, we regularly had psychological support to help us with this, and this was back in the day before those things were talked about, because it's recognised that we were witnessing traumatic things all of the time. And it almost feels like trauma has become normal, you know, that's expected, and the caring professions and people who work in it, that is now things that would have been intense, you know, a few years ago, are now normal run of the mill things. And I also think, and you know, what you said around police officers not wanting to have things written down about their stress levels because it might affect their promotion, what they're considered to be able to cope with, is so true. And I think there's a lot of work to be done with organisations, is that we're all going through stress. If we weren't going through stress and reacting to it, that's not normal, isn't it? That's the thing that isn't normal. And, you know, acknowledging it and dealing with it is the normal thing. And that's one of the things that we were going to talk about. Talking about mental health is normal, wasn't it? So, you know, that I believe that there's a lot of work to do around with organisations to talk about, you know, that everyone, you know, because of what's happened over the last 18 months, nearly 2 years, is traumatized. And so there's no one that's exempt, as you say. You know, so what do you think about that, Linda?
It's so true. I mean, we've talked a lot about nursing and that, because that's sort of our background and medical. But this is in companies, whether they're small, medium, or large. And it's a time, change has come so much because working at home, has its benefits, but it also has its downsides. If you're at home 2 hours, a couple of children, you know, a dog and a budgerigar, where do you go for some quiet time? Whereas you're used to having a different change of scenery. You're this person in this place. So you have personas as well. Whereas you know, trying to be that person in a different environment also brings this added stress. Then people going back into the workplace, you know, are people vaccinated? Is the place ready for us to come back? So many employers lost the opportunity of bringing their workers back in a very succinct way. They could easily do a video and say, well, this is what has been put into place, this is how we're going to do it. You know, even do a little walkthrough of saying, you know, the ways in, the ways out, or what has been provided. It could alleviate so many anxieties. And you know, for team leaders, managers in general, directors, or even owners, you know, they're not mental health specialists.
No.
So we all don't know what we don't know until it gets pointed out to us. So there's some really simple things that, you know, people don't know what they're looking at. You know, people, for example, many managers say, oh, when they're asked about dyslexia, oh, it's people that can't read. Well, it's not. You know, they can read, but it's actually the processing of the letters and the words. That's why it affects language. That's why it affects time management. That's why it affects organizational skills as well. But they don't look at this because they don't know about it.
Yeah.
You know, you can't get somebody to do something when they don't know it exists. So highlighting the possibilities, and sometimes it could be just as easy as doing something very simple that the whole organization could use, so the inclusivity becomes much easier. But definitely, that awareness has to be there first, because if they don't know it, they can't look for it.
It's so true. And I think, you know, I'm a great believer that nobody goes to work to do a bad job. I believe that managers want to support and be inclusive of their workforce. I know that the evidence suggests that if you do that, you will have a better workforce, you'll have less absenteeism, less, you know, better productivity, and people who are happier in their work. It means there's less complaints, there's less risk to the organisation reputationally, there's all sorts of benefits to it. So, and I think, as you say, the things around awareness of the benefits of, that could be impacting on your staff, and what can we do about it. And I really like what you say about you don't know what you don't know. So there's no blame, no judgment. It's raising awareness and using examples of how that could be, and how people, and I know that's what you do in your work with organizations. And how did you get into that? Because clearly there's a need. How did you move from working with perpetrators to working with organizations?
Well, I've been on the speaking circuit for a few years, and I've been based in the Middle East and worked with quite a lot of private hospitals and things like this. And I came back to the UK in 2017 with the idea that I wanted to do something for me. I'd always been contracted, and it's like that you have this idea bubbling, but it doesn't actually get anything done about it. I came back with the concept that this is what I was going to do. And I went for a 6-week contract in Leeds in Armley, and that lasted 3.5 years.
As they do.
We get sucked back into these things, because they develop. Unfortunately, mental health is never going to go away. It just perpetuates. And people do prefer to say they've been in prison rather than they've been off anytime.
Yes.
Is in their CVs.
Yes.
It's about cutting this stigma. And so one thing really led to another. I was part of Toastmasters, and if anybody's part of Toastmasters, it's the biggest dating agency in the world, but it's also
I need to join.
You've got contacts from all over the world, so people started asking me, and especially because when COVID hit, I couldn't go into the groups, but mental health groups, support groups did run all the way through. And I did do in-person groups all the way through, and online as well. So really it sort of developed through, it's like everything, as I said before, when you look for the doors, they will open. So somebody that came on one of the freebie support groups worked in a company and said, oh, could you come and do this within the group online on Teams? So, yeah, you can do that. So then it sort of went through there. So that's really how it started. I didn't particularly look to do that because it had never been my background. But it's surprising that, as we say, in the healthcare and the key role area, lots of people do know about mental health, but knowing and doing are the two different things. But in the corporate world, people don't actually know about it.
True. So true. And, going back, as you know, I worked in the health service for a long time, and it's a bit like, physician heal thyself in the NHS. It's sort of like, no, we've got a job to do, you need to crack on with it. But, and we're seeing the effects now of, nearly 2 years of constant stress. Like, people are falling by the wayside. We're really struggling to recruit nurses. Infrastructure is crumbling, and the problems we had before are being exacerbated because people are tired and they need help. So, so we're really good. I think the NHS is brilliant at dealing with a crisis. It's not so good at helping those people who are dealing with the crisis to help themselves. And so you can be a brilliant surgeon, you can be a brilliant nurse, you can be a brilliant manager, but you go home, you do your 18-hour day, you don't sleep, and then you burn out, and then there are literally financial costs to that. And as you say, in other organizations, and there's almost nothing good about COVID-19, but one of the things that it's made people think, well, yeah, we're putting people under a lot of strain, aren't we? And people can see that in their businesses. And you talked about working at home. Some of the things people go to work for is the association with other people. It's part of, how they, I know I used to love going to work because it's sort of like provided structure for my day and, stuff like that. And then going to working completely from home and having to really think about how you're going to engage with people is totally different. And I think one of the things as well as the impact it's had on businesses and stuff like that, is that, you know, it's also, we need to think about how we look after our workforce, because they're the people doing the jobs for this, and that's why this is needed, and raising awareness. And you do that, you've got a masterclass on doing that, haven't you, Linda? I know this.
Yeah. I think, you know, any business has got to come to the conclusion that their biggest asset is their staff, because your business is only as good as your staff, and that's all your staff, you know, whether we're talking about the receptionist or the cleaner, or, you know, up to the CEO, because if every one of them does their jobs brilliantly, you have got a fantastic company. And you talked earlier about absenteeism being a huge issue. It is a huge issue now, but presenteeism is 4 times as bad. Right? And it's costing companies much more. And we all do it. You go into work and you're not really there. You're thinking about something else, or I've got to take, you know, get the pet to the vet, or what are we going to have for tea, or how am I going to fit this club in for so and so. So that presenteeism is costing so much productivity. And that's also, if you are then working in a system, you know, like somebody who has Asperger's or is on the autistic spectrum, if they go in and open their emails up and there's like 300 emails, they're already put off because they actually don't know where to start. It's not that, you know, they're not interested, they're already struggling. Whereas if you had a system of categorizing as, you know, urgent, for today, non-urgent, pass on, just 4 boxes, you know, they would open those and they could deal with them a lot easier. So just by taking simple steps, you could make people a lot more engaged, a lot more productivity within the company, you know, just by looking at their needs because of the way that they need to work. So the masterclass, basically, we are talking about misconceptions and mangled truths, because there's a lot of bad information out there. So let's get rid of a lot of it, especially the stigma, because there's 3 types of stigma. There's your personal stigma, your professional stigma, and cultural. And there's still, even today, there's still a lot of cultures that mental health doesn't exist. You lock it away, you shut it up, you close the door. You know, it is not going to go away by ignoring it. So that is one thing I will guarantee, wherever you are, whatever you are. And mental health doesn't care about your age, it doesn't care about your gender, it doesn't care about your social standing or your economic standing. You know, we all go through it at different times of our life. Whether anxiety is normal, it just change the word to nervous or excitement. It's the same feeling, but if it's extended for a long period of time, then it has a knock-on effect of what it's doing in your life. Then it is not healthy. Yeah, it's the same with sadness. If something happens or you have a bereavement, there's a 2-year cycle for bereavement. If you are moving through that 2-year cycle, it is healthy. It is good to cry. It's good to, you know, to go through those stages. But if you're 5 years down or 10 years down the line and you're still stuck in that cycle, it is not healthy. So there are mental health issues. And the reason I use hidden disabilities is because a lot of the learning disabilities that people think about, like the dyspraxia, dyslexia, OCD, and even on the autistic spectrum, they don't look any different to anybody else. If somebody's got a broken arm or a broken leg, you know, they can actually get a little bit of sympathy because they see, or, you know, if somebody's in a wheelchair or if somebody's blind, you know, they've got physical attributes that people can adhere to. But with people with the hidden disabilities, they don't look any different, but they actually process things very, very differently. So being able to understand that is critical, because then, you know, people often think people with Asperger's on autistic spectrum as well, you know, they're rude or they're abrupt. You know, they're not. Their social interaction processes differently. So if you speak or you email a CEO, you're not going to write them half a page because they're just not going to read it. Not because they're on any spectrum, because they're, you know, that's the way they are. But
that's
if you
true.
write the same way to somebody who is on the spectrum, you will get far more out of them because they will understand it far more. You might think it's, you know, curt and brutal, but it's not, because to them, if you tell them X, Y, Z and it's written down, they can follow it and they can tick it off, and you can actually get a lot more done.
That's really helpful. That is really helpful, and it really, if you understand how that person communicates, then you can communicate in the best way, so you get the best out of them. And it's not, so I'm guilty of this myself, is that you assume because you communicate in a certain way that everybody does the same. And what you've just said is that we need to look at the communication style, which is what Asperger's, autism, that's a lot of it. It's not all of it, but that's a lot of it, isn't it? It's about communication style, and that how you will get the best out of people. And there's no point saying, oh, they don't understand me, no, this is not, because it's in, and this is related to culture, how people work, and the culture of an organization, because you can be in an organization where they work in a certain way, and that almost discriminates against people who don't communicate in that way. And that's the thing that needs to be got across, is that regardless of cultural norms, you will get the best out of your staff if they are able to communicate in the way that's best for them. So I really like that, Linda. Really good example. Love it. Absolutely love it.
And also, you've got to think that most educational systems in the world are based on the same system, right? Mm-hmm. And these people, by the time they become adults, have been brutalized. Yeah. They've been bullied. They've had really bad experiences in school. If they've been brave enough to go on to college, they've dealt with this, and a lot of them have, especially the older age groups, have never been diagnosed.
Yes,
because it wasn't something that was. My daughter's now 30, mm-hmm. and I really had to battle to get her statemented. I actually went to educational tribunal. The school fought me all the way. They would not, just even changing a question, because they would always explain something to her in their way and say to her, do you understand? And she'd say yes. And then she'd go off and do something completely different. Then they'd get really irate with her. And I'd say, just change the question. Instead of saying, do you understand? What have you understood? And you might be really surprised what you get back. But it was a battle just to change that question, because then they would have understood that she hadn't got what they'd explained or they'd said, because their concept of language is different. And spelling rules and things like this. If you give people one set of rules, they expect everything to be in those rules. They're very conformist. That's why people, they're very good often with systems and details and things like this, because they really have a great eye for it. They can offer completely different views of things, but we have to understand that they do process and look at things in a different way. Their brains work in a different way. That's been proved loads of times. Harvard and Stanford have done huge researches on this, and the actual brain, the areas of the brain do work in a different way. So it's about highlighting that and saying, great, bring it in, let's see what we can do with it. And it can make a big difference to your business as well.
Yeah, I really love that advice. And another time we will talk about the education system and battling with education and there's probably a massive business in helping parents to work with education organisations for the positivity of their children. And so that's lovely. So you wrote a book, didn't you? You've written a book as well. You talked about earlier, you mentioned looking after your parents, and was that what the book was about?
Well, caring for the caregiver. It's actually based on the trainings that I was doing before and the workshops and things like this. It's proactive, and it does say to in some chapters, if you haven't done this, don't do it before you go forward. Yeah. But so it is a proactive way, because lots of people don't always want to go to groups or join in with things. It's a great way of getting started. But being involved with other people when you're going on your journey is always a great thing as well, because when you're supported, it's very easy to think I'm the only person in the world this is happening to, and you're not. There's hundreds of thousands and millions of people out there, but how many of those want to talk about it? That is a brave step to then flag up and say, actually, this has happened to me. And even recently, like we've been saying about, look, coping with change. I've been working at home. I have been out, obviously, because I've still been working with the prisons and I've still been doing the support groups and that. But only the last 3 weeks have I got back into doing regular outside work. I've actually now got an agent, and she started getting me some really good work. So the first week I had 3 days out. The second week I had 4 days out. This week I've had 2 days out so far. But the end of the second week, I was shattered. You know, just going out and just having people around you, having the noise, having the things that are ongoing. And it was just like, wow, you know, I used to do this 5 days a week and not think anything about it. But getting back into that swing again, especially when, you know, you live on your own, so you're used to calm and you've got your peace, and going out and having so much going on. And especially for people that are on the autistic spectrum and things like this, you know, what white noise and are going on, and, you know, things bubbling around them, it's really exhausting for them. It's hard for them to concentrate. So sometimes taking a step back, we have to realize that, you know, moving back into it, we have to take care of ourselves as well. So we can't jump in 2 feet. We often
because we want to help, we want to do things, we're proactive people, you know, and that's what the podcast is about. It's about, you know, that those type of people who want to do everything. There's a lot, but they're not, and they want to help people, and they want to help people with their expertise, but it's also being very cognizant that you have to help yourself. So I really like the title of your book, you know, Care for the Caregiver, because, you know, to do that well, it's like your staff, you have to enable yourself so that you can be the best you can be. Definitely, and it is part of your holistic self, is also looking after yourself, because you're the you're the person.
It doesn't matter whether you're an entrepreneur, or if you're a team leader, or if you're, you know, you've got a conglomerate. You know, people depend on you, and, you know, if you go down in a corporate situation, if you're not 100%, how are you leading a team, you know, to be 100%? You know, if you're an entrepreneur and you're not 100%, very likely your business is not going to function. Because you're going to find it very hard over time to keep going. You know, we all have this dream of entrepreneurship, you know, sitting on a white sandy beach, and, you know, azure blue waters with your toes dipping in and tapping away for an hour, making millions. And reality,
I have to be honest, Linda, this is my dream. This is what I'm working towards. I'm working to the white sands of Jamaica, and, you know, sort of like, just like occasionally sort of like doing a quick video and then going back to the beach. But the reality is that takes a lot of work, doesn't it? Organisation, and as part of that, you've got to look after yourself, else you'll be too tired to enjoy that. You know, because it can be done, but, you know, it's a process, and part of that process is also looking after yourself, isn't it?
Otherwise, you won't be able to get there when you can, you know, financially or, you know, stability wise, go there, because you'll be so under the weather you won't be able to enjoy it.
Yes. So we've talked about how everybody should do that, how we should make sort of like that nobody's exempt from sort of the effects of mental health, that talking about mental health is totally normal, and that, you know, that you should do things around self-care. Do you embody that? How do you manage to do that? How do you manage to say focused, positive and productive, because you are, and also look after your own health and well-being? You know, and I ask, you know, from because I'm really good at helping people with their own health and well-being, really good at doing that, but sometimes I struggle doing it for myself.
My outlet has always been writing and broadcasting. I've never really looked at them as a professional part. It's been part of my professional growth, because obviously I do 2 radio shows and my podcast, but I've always been involved in radio, hospital radio, I was in university radio, expat radio. You know, that to me is, I go and I do something completely different. It's challenging, because I've learned the technical side of it. I do MCing for charity events and things like this, because they're things that completely take me away from anything that I'm doing otherwise. So and writing for me, I've actually just started, this is a first for you, I've actually just started my first novel. I've never attempted a novel. I've been published in all sorts of magazines, and I've written for Hallam, Sheffield University, and other universities, obviously books and things like this, but I've never attempted a novel. So this is another way. I just thought I enjoy writing, but let's give it a completely different way, because the focus on the other writing is easy because I know the information. This one's really creativity. I'm not a painter or anything like this. Drawing, no, doesn't float my boat at all. But I do think it's important that you have something that is completely away from what you normally do, because it gives you other opportunities and something for you as well.
Definitely. I really like that, because I'm the same. I love to write and blog, and doing this podcast is something that is not income generating. It's something I like to do. It's giving back, and it's a good thing, and it does offer other opportunities, because you meet some fantastic people. I met you doing this, and you don't know where that's going to lead, and it's something that it's slightly work related, but it's not essential, and I love it, and it helps with the writing as well. It helps me with my content, so it's all helpful, and I really like that. And sort of like, usually people say, oh, I go to the gym and I try to meditate and stuff like that, and sometimes I think with that those are all good things, but you have to do something that gives you joy, as Marie Kondo would say, that that gives you joy and that you enjoy doing. So I really like that. Yeah. And I might join Toastmasters, being as it's a dating site as well. That'll be good for me.
But again, going to a Toastmaster, I mean, I've been a member of Toastmasters since 2008, and traveling, especially when you travel on your own, it has opened so many doors. It actually gave me my first social life when I went to the Middle East. So a Western female on her own, there are no social activities really. So going to a Toastmasters and interacting with other people was really opening the first doors there for me. So it is really important. And again, it's a way you don't have to talk anything about your business or anything you do. Things you talk about can be completely different topics, because you're just following a structure of building the confidence and the abilities and skills to be able to present on a better level. So it's interesting, and you always come away learning something. I don't care how long you've been going, and of course going online, you've got global groups now, so you just don't have to go to your little local groups. Going to a global group is fantastic. So I've really enjoyed it.
Brilliant. And so how can people get in touch with you? We're going to put the link to the masterclass. There's another one. We're recording this at the end of October, but there's another masterclass in November, and I think you run them regularly. So I'm going to put a link to that in the show notes. If people want to hear more about you, learn more about you, how would they do that, Linda?
I keep it very simple, because when I started off, I virtually knew nothing about social media. So everything is my name. So keep it nice and simple. My LinkedIn, my Facebook, Instagram is all Linda Sage. So
brilliant. And
or meet Linda Sage, the YouTube as well. So I think if you Google me, it comes up, and there's lots of links. And also
I do the same. Perfect personal branding. If you put my name in, it comes up, and that and then people can get in touch with you and with me. It has been so good to talk to you. Some nuggets, some gems, and find about your absolutely fascinating life, and also how you help organisations. It's been really good to talk about mental health, because it's a hot topic at the moment, and well so. But even being a hot topic, it's still difficult for people to talk about. And you've talked about the social stigma, but you've also talked about the normality of it and how it affects us all. So that has been fantastic. Thank you so much. We're coming to the end of the show, and what I always do is I ask people, is there one little nugget, bit of advice, saying that to leave the audience with as we close the show?
Yeah, Dawn, it's been wonderful being with you, and all your lovely listeners and viewers as well. So getting out there is always nice to meet other people.
Yes.
I always sign off with, be kind to yourself, because if you treat yourself how you treat other people, because you give them some leeway, but then you're quite hard on yourself. So just be kind to yourself. And if you have a down day, you have a down day. Next day's going to be better.
Brilliant. Absolutely wonderful. It's been an absolute pleasure, Linda. And I know this is not the last time we're going to speak. Definitely, because we've got a lot in common. And and I think it's about getting that message about mental health and around, how we can help each other and be kind to each other. Thank you so much. And that's it for the Dawn Jarvis show today. If you like what you saw, heard, and listened to, and the tips and tricks, please do like, share, subscribe, and let us know what you think in the comments. Take care, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Dawn Jarvis Show. If you enjoyed this episode, there are 2 things you can do. Number 1, leave Dawn a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. It would mean so much to her if you took a moment out of your time to post your thoughts on the show. It will help Dawn reach so many more people and help them with their well-being. Number 2, subscribe to Dawn's email list, the Diverse Nurse Digest, using the link in the show notes. Until the next time, thank you and goodbye.